Hey everybody, so I recently had a good friend of mine express an interest in streaming and starting a YouTube channel. I kind of started trying to figure out how to do all the streaming stuff. Dug into OBS, how to set OBS up, how to stream to some of these streaming providers, how to do the recording through OBS and other video software, and more specifically the overlays, the themes that go with that. And so initially we have him set up, which is a pre-purchased theme. The theme that you're actually seeing me actively use in this video is a pre-purchased theme as well. However, my daughter approached me and said, "Daddy, I want to stream too." So my daughter's 6 years old, so I don't know if I'm going to be letting her stream to a live audience, at least with the webcam on for the foreseeable future. But she did say she wanted to stream on Twitch or YouTube, and she said she wanted a rainbow unicorn theme. So I have been digging into this, how to create themes, using some previous skill sets with Photoshop, and combining them with some newly acquired skill sets with animating graphics. Big shout out to Nutty on YouTube. Had some great videos on basic overlays. So I've kind of taken those concepts, ran with them, combined them with Photoshop skills, and today we're going to be creating a rainbow unicorn theme for live streams. It's going to be awesome. We're going to use two pieces of software. We're going to use Photoshop Elements. We're going to use HitFilm Express. Reason why on HitFilm Express, it's free. Also, it's what I was introduced to, and it's what I know how to use. So Photoshop Elements, I use Photoshop Elements instead of the full version of Photoshop because I like Photoshop, but I don't like the monthly bill that comes with it. Elements is a one-time perpetual license. You own it forever. So I think I ran with a version of Photoshop Elements for like 7 years before I finally upgraded to this latest version a couple months ago, and I've always been able to do everything that I could do in full Photoshop and Photoshop Elements. That being said, I'm not the biggest Photoshop power user, but for what we're doing here today, Photoshop Elements is going to be just fine, as well as the majority of stuff you're probably going to need to do in general. So without further ado, let's get into making this rainbow unicorn theme. It's going to be awesome. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get into this. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and open up Photoshop. She wants a border around her whole screen while she streams. So if you don't want that on yours, go ahead and skip to the next part. If you do though, you're going to want to make your resolution here the same resolution you're going to be streaming in. So for her, she's streaming in 1080p, 1920 by 1080. Hit OK. If you're streaming in 4K, make sure that you use that resolution. So then the next piece that we're going to do here, thin as possible around the outside. You don't want this to stick too far out into your screen. She's going to have little boxes that we're going to make. We're going to add them later, but those are going to be separate elements. So for this one, I'm just going to try and freehand as close as possible to the edge of the screen. We're not going for perfection here. This needs to look like kind of like kids' doodles. Okay, so now I have my outside border. So what I'm going to do now is select the inside of this, and then I'm going to select the inverse. Undo. So I'm just going to select the inside of this. Select. We want to expand this by 2 pixels, and then we want to select the inverse. And the reason I wanted to expand the 2 pixels first is so that our fill layer that we're going to create is always underneath the border. So I'm going to go layer, new layer, okay, change my color down here to red. That's not red. Okay, so I'm in grayscale mode for some reason, so I'm going to change that to RGB. Layer, new layer. Okay, now that I'm in color mode, I'm going to, on a new layer, fill this selection that I have red. So then, the reason I want it red is because I want to be able to see it. So we're going to go ahead and, it doesn't matter what order these are in, we're going to export them separately. So I'm going to hide one of my layers. This is all I need out of this. So we're going to file, save for web. Make sure that your save for web options say PNG24, and you want to make sure this transparency box is there. And then you're going to go through in your projects and save this as, let's actually make a folder for rainbow unicorn theme. And we're going to save this as outside border mask. Save. Okay, then we're gonna show the outline, and then we're going to hide the mask. We're going to file, save for web, save. Again, make sure this transparency box and that you're on PNG24. It should remember your settings from before. So I'm going to name this the same thing except outside border outline. And now we're going to open HitFilm Express. And in HitFilm, we're going to go File, New. 1920 by 1080 is actually very necessary for this particular item. That's fine. I'm going to make my, well, duration's fine here. Okay. So leave this default. Doesn't matter for what we're doing. Video 1920 by 1080. Frame rate 30. If you want, if you're doing like 4K streaming and like super HD kind of high frame rate streaming, probably going to want to make sure this is 60, but 30 is actually fine. So unless you're really picky, and 30's probably going to be fine for you. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and then we're going to import the media we just made. So in our rainbow unicorn theme, I'm going to import our outside border mask and our outside border outline. I'm going to drag the mask onto video 1, and then right click on that and make a composite shot out of it. Composite. And that creates this media object. So we're going to be able to add other objects and effects onto different, basically, layers. So this is kind of like Photoshop at this point. So what I'm going to do now is go back into Photoshop, and we are going to create a new blank file. We're actually going to go 1920 by 1920 for this one. And that should be fine. And we're going to select our gradient tool. And on our gradient, one of the presets, you got a couple here that are rainbowish. I like this one, and I'm just going to layer it a couple times because the edge is transparent. So we're going to go ahead and layer this way. Just make sure it's kind of straight. It doesn't actually really matter. And why are we in grayscale mode again? Don't know, but let's try this again. It's actually not bad. little too red. Not enough red. There we go, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to save this again. Save. We're going to call this rainbow plane. Probably going to take just a second. Okay, and then in hit film, we're going to import our rainbow plane, and we're going to drag it into our composite shot, but we want to drag it above our outside border mask. So on our mask, we're going to expand it and go into transform, and we're going to set our opacity all the way down to 0. So we don't actually want to see the mask. We're hiding it because the only thing we're using the mask for is to actually tell rainbow plane where to show. So under our rainbow plane, we're going to expand it, come into effects, click this little plus button, go down to keying, and then matte enhancements, and we're going to do set matte layer only. And then when you expand the set matte effect, you're going to give the source layer as outside border mask. And now here's the shape that we drew. So the last thing that we're going to do is, as far as adding media to our composite shot, is come in and find our outside border outline, and we're going to add it to the composite shot above the rainbow plane. So this is actually, you can't really see it because our background is, the transparent background here is black, and so is our outline. But this is going to give it the outline that we had. And so what we should end up looking like is something like this, except the red is filled with our rainbow. So, and the reason that we want to do that here, and not just in Photoshop directly, is because we're going to animate the rainbow. So we're going to actually cause the rainbow to turn. So the first thing we're going to do is right click on our composite shot and go to properties. I don't want this to happen super fast, so I want this to be kind of slow and smooth and more calming. So we're going to set this to 10 seconds, and then we're going to drag everything out to 10 seconds. Okay, so now that we're at 10 seconds, we can click on our rainbow plane layer, and then we have this timeline. So this is where you currently are. If you click play, this will move across. So what we want to do is make sure this is at 0, and then on our rainbow plane, under transform, there's this rotation option. So you want to check this little circle here. That's going to create a keyframe where it tells it where to start, and then you're going to drag it all the way to the end. So you're going to drag it all the way to 10 seconds, and then you're going to click on this 0x and type a 1. So this is telling it from this point to this point, rotate 1 complete time. So then if you look at our rainbow plane here, you see how it's rotating and rotating. But you'll also notice it's not big enough to avoid the corners. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this here, and we're going to tell this that we want our scale up. So just drag this up, and you don't want it to be too huge because you don't want any of the colors in that rainbow plane to go missing, but you don't want it to be cutting anything either. So just drag it so that it's barely sticking over the corners when it turns, and then you should be good to go. And we are. So now, if you look at this, here is what our animation looks like over 10 seconds. And the reason I turn the opacity down on this layer is because I noticed without doing that, sometimes with Photoshop, the edge of things that you make transparent, it kind of fades them. And where that fade happens, HitFilm will actually not be able to handle that. So you'll see like some red pixelation around the edge. So I just hide the mask layer because you don't need it anyways. And then that gets rid of that problem. So, so from here we have our shot that we want. So we will right click on our composite shot under our media, and then add to export, and then contents. And then we're going to set this to uncompressed AVI with alpha. And this is fine. I'm going to go ahead and change this to, we'll name it Rainbow Unicorn Outside Border. And then start exporting. And then this will go ahead and render this out. And then here momentarily, we should be able to see our AVI. And it looks good. So now I'm going to create a new scene in OBS called Rainbow Unicorn Theme. And we're going to add a source. Let's actually add a something. Okay, so we're gonna have it capture this window. Twitch browser window. Or not. It doesn't like to grab edge apparently. Maybe OBS is maybe it can't see the 32-bit process. That's interesting. Okay, so let's just add a regular display capture there. Okay, that's fine. It's gonna have a little infinite mirror effect. Okay, so we have whatever we're going to display here, right? And then we're going to add a media source. And this is going to be overlay, rainbow, unicorn, border. Okay. So we're going to browse through our file. Here we are. Rainbow unicorn outside border. And we're going to loop it. And now here's our outside rainbow unicorn border. And then something that you're going to want to do as well as we're going through all of these, when we're done with a specific piece, go ahead and save your actual source project. So I went ahead and saved this as a outside border source.psd. And then if you ever need to make a change, then you have it, so it's not as big of a deal to come back and do what you need to do. We're going to go ahead and move on to, I think we're going to make a webcam border. Again, I don't know if I'm going to let her stream with the webcam. However, I do think it's important just to include for completion's sake. So we're going to go ahead and do another 1920 by 1080. Again, if you're streaming 4K, do this in 4K, not 1080p. So I have this 16 by 9 grid. You can find this online. I'll include a link also. Your webcam is going to be 16 by 9 format, so this is a good way to kind of size where your webcam is going to be. So you make a document running whatever resolution you're running. You paste this on there, and then you resize this however big you want it to be. So if you want your webcam to take half your screen, then resize this bigger. Otherwise, kind of resize this however big you want. I think this is pretty good. I like that. So then now I'm going to actually resize my document because I don't want to be working in all this space. So just use the rectangular selection tool to go ahead and select around. Leave yourself a little space and then come up to image and hit crop, and this will give us our size. So now we're going to kind of do the same thing that we did before with the tracing. Again, we don't want this to be perfect. It's supposed to look like kind of like a small child drew this. So on a new layer, we're going to just try and trace the edge here. Oops. Gonna make sure that we have this in black because this is going to be our outline. Okay. That looks pretty good. So let's nuke these layers. We don't need them anymore. We'll do a little touch up here. And that's good. So I'm going to, on a new layer, come through and just start drawing boxes over these boxes. Okay, so now we have two sets. Let's do our base layer first. Layer. Actually, we'll wait to do that. Okay, so on our base layer, select again the blank space inside. Select, modify, expand by 2 pixels because we want it to be out into our outline. And then layer, new layer. Okay. Gonna make this red again. And we're gonna fill this in. So now we have this layer. So we're gonna save for web. Make sure our transparency is there. So we have webcam, border, mask. Webcam border, outline. And we want it to look like this. So in the end, but the red is going to be replaced by our rainbow, just like our outside border was. And then we're going to do the same thing here. So this one's going to be a little different. So on your selection tool, make sure that you have your selection tool set to add to selection and not new. If it's set to new, anytime you click on one of these squares, it's going to select the square and deselect what you had before. But if you have this on add, it's going to add to the selection and keep what you had before as well as anything new you select. So there we just want to make sure that all our squares are in our selection. And then layer, new layer. If I can keep my mouse going right here. And then select, modify, expand. We want to expand our selection by 2 pixels to get it out into this border again. And then with our fill tool on our new layer, just fill that in. And then hide our border. Save for web, save, webcam border. And we're going to call these accents mask. Webcam border accents outline, save. Again, it's going to look like this, but these are going to be filled in with the idea that there's going to be different rainbow layers here. And we'll probably rotate one rainbow layer one way and one the other way, but it should be fine. So the last thing that we're going to do, resize. Let's make our canvas square here. And then layer, new layer. Okay. Make sure we're on our rainbow gradient tool again. See, and the edges here are kind of transparent, so I'm going to do this one more time just to make sure that we're solid. Save for web. Okay. The reason I did that is just because it's smaller, so maybe we can make some, have a smaller size when we're done here. So I'm going to save this project. Okay, and then file new. Again, we want 30. 1920 by 1080 is fine, but that doesn't matter in this case. So then, make sure we're on our viewer. We're going to import 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the first one we're going to want to do is start with webcam border mask. And then make a composite shot. Okay. And then we're going to drag on our rainbow plane. Again, we're going to set our opacity on this to 0. Then on our rainbow plane, we're going to come in. We're going to set our matte enhancement is under keying, matte enhancement, and then set matte layer. We're going to set our source for our mask, our matte to webcam border mask. So that gives us that. And then we're going to drag our outline on top of it. And then let's go into our composite shot properties. Again, we don't want this to happen like super rapidly. So let's set this to 10 seconds instead of 5. Drag everything out. And then on our rainbow plane, under rotation, we want to make sure we're on 0. Set our rotation. that makes this keyframe pop up here all the way to the end. We're going to change this to 1 to let it know complete 1 full rotation from this keyframe to this keyframe. So now we can see it's rotating, and our rainbow plane is good because it's already a little bit bigger. So this is actually good. I think I'm going to make it a little smaller though, because it's actually not getting any of the reds. There we go. That's closer. That's good. Okay, so there's that one. And now we need to add our other layer on top of it. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this one on. So now we have that, as well as our outline. But we want to do the same thing, right? So we want to make sure that this opacity on the mask layer is 0. And we want to add another rainbow plane. And again, our effect on the rainbow plane is going to be under keying, matte enhancement, set matte, expand this down, set our source layer to border accents mask. And now on this layer, we're going to rotate it the other way. So we're going to come in here and enable this. But we're then going to go all the way to the end. And we're going to say -1. So that's going to make it rotate this way instead. So we're going to have one layer rotating one way and one layer rotating the other way, which should look kind of cool. So let's check it out. Yep. It's kind of hard to tell anywhere but here, but it does work. So that's there. So now we take our composite shot. We find our composite shot. Add to export, export the contents. And let's save this as Rainbow Unicorn Webcam border. We'll save it and we'll start exporting. And then in OBS, we'll come back and we'll add a group, call it Webcam. And then under here, we will add a video capture device. And actually, I had already added it, so we'll add it. We'll re-add it here. So we're going to add a video capture device. Webcam 2. So I have 2 webcams running so that I can record on this one, as well as use another one for an example. So that's why we have webcam 2. So we're going to select this guy, and I'm going to configure this video a little bit. I want this is a 720p camera, so we'll just set it that way. That's fine. Okay, so we now have our webcam, and we want to add the webcam under the webcam group, and then we're also going to add our new border. So we want to add a media source, overlay, rainbow unicorn webcam border. Okay. Browse, select our webcam border, set loop, hit OK. And now here's our border. So the only thing to do is to drag this over. It's actually kind of easier to do the webcam over top of this, so that you can make sure that it's within your original border. And then once you're happy there, then drag it behind. There you go. And now when you select the group, it'll move the border with the webcam. So there now, now she has a webcam border. Okay, so something that I just decided right now is on this webcam border we have like these accents that we did. I really like that, and I want to make this outside border match. So we're gonna actually go back in. We're gonna open our original outside border source, and then we're going to actually create some accents like we did for the webcam. So we're gonna go layer, new layer. Okay, make sure this layer is on top, and then we're just gonna draw boxes. So make sure our color's on black, and we're just gonna draw boxes. Hide our other layers. Come in and select. Make sure your selection tool is on add mode again. We don't want to have it on new mode, otherwise it won't remember what your previous clicks. So after you have the inside of all of your new boxes selected, go to select, modify, expand by 2 pixels. Layer, new layer. Okay. Make sure we're on red color again. And you're just going to fill that in, and then drag your layer behind. So it should look something like this, and this is going to be the end result, except our red is again replaced by rainbow. So we're going to go ahead, hide your outline, file, save for web, okay, save. This is outside border accents mask. I had done a previous one, and the recording kind of messed up, so redoing it here. So that's why the file names exist. So hide your mask layer, show your border layer, file, save for web, save, and outside border accents, save, replace, okay. And then make sure you save your source project. Outside border source, yes. So that was actually an example. I saved my source project, otherwise I would have had to redo all of that if I wanted to add the accents. So so back in Hit Film, we're going to open our outside border, and then in our composite shot, we are going to import both of our new deals, and we're going to add our mask, and we want these new group of 3 to be above the old group of 3. So there's that. Again, we're gonna make our mask so that you can't see it. So we're just gonna turn the opacity of our mask layer down to 0. We're gonna add another rainbow plane on top of our outside border mask. And we need to make sure that our rainbow plane is big enough so that when it rotates, the entire view area is in the rainbow plane. So again, we're going to go to Effects. It's under Keying, Matte Enhancement, set matte layer only. Expand that effect down and drop the source layer to outside border accents mask. So that's going to give us this again. And then our rotation. So if you click that button, if you make a mistake, just click the button, it'll remove it, just for that effect only, which is nice. So make sure that we're on 0. Click our rotation to get our starting keyframe. Drag it all the way to the end. Our rotation. Again, I'm gonna go -1. That way it rotates the other way, as opposed to where the base border is rotating. And then if I move this, I should notice all of my corners are inside that, or all the view areas inside the box the whole time. If you have any clipping, then you're gonna want to expand your rainbow plane. Make sure that it's big enough to cover all of that. And then the last step, outside borders, accents, outline. Make sure it's above the rainbow plane. And now we should see that cut through. And this is what our outside border is going to look like. So now I'm going to save the source project again, minimize all of these, and then find my composite shot in my media queue, add to export contents, and do it as an uncompressed alpha. We can replace our previous rainbow unicorn outside border. Yes. And then start exporting. And then I already had it selected in OBS as the outside border, so you notice it froze. So you're going to want to right click on the source, go to properties. You don't have to change anything, just click OK, and then it'll reload it, and it'll start animating again. So now, pretty cool matching outside border. So we're kind of starting to pull our theme together here a little bit. The last thing that I'm going to do for this theme is create a top piece. She wanted a counter to show how many people were watching her feed. So basically, we're just going to have to give her a way to do that. We're not going to actually build that into the theme, obviously, but we're just going to have to build a piece that drops down, keeping in mind that there's going to need to be an area to do that. So let's go back into Photoshop, and we go File, New, Blank File, 20 by 1080, and okay. So, staying with our previous theme, I think that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and resize this down. Use your rectangle selection tool, select everything, and then go to image crop. Go ahead and deselect, and then again we're going to select inside all of our boxes. Modify, expand 2 pixels, layer, new layer. Take our fill tool, change our color to red, create that fill or mask layer. Okay. So we're just going to show our mask layer, save for web, and we'll save this as top banner mask. Same thing. 1820, 1080. It's fine. Frame rate 30. Import our top banner outline, and then our rainbow plane. Drag your top banner mask onto your editor. Right click, make composite shot. Okay. Expand that down, go into transform, set your mask opacity to 0%. Add your rainbow plane layer with the effect keying, matte enhancement, set matte layer only, set the source layer to top banner mask. Okay, you're going to be able to zoom way out on this, and you're actually going to want to resize this plane to be smaller, because if you don't do that, you'll never see all the colors. You'll only see like the inside ones, because they'll be really stretched out. See, so we don't want that. We want it to show all the colors. So we'll do that. Let's come into our properties on our composite shot before we forget, and set this to 10 seconds. Expand everything out there. And then come back to 0. And our transform under our rainbow plane. We're going to want to enable rotation again. Make sure that keyframe shows up. Move our slider all the way to the last second. And we're going to do... We're going to want to do -1 to match the rest of the accents that we had in our other elements. So, there we go. And then drag your top banner outline. Make sure it's over top of your rainbow plane. Now, this is where we're going to kind of customize this a little bit. So she has a logo that she likes. That we're going to add. So I'm going to pull some of these elements through. And that is her streams. Luna streams with Luna Fu. So we're going to go ahead and add this on. Probably better to transform from here so it maintains aspect ratio. I think it'll look okay if we just use this one. So let's just make this bigger. I like it about there. I think it's good. And then info Photoshop, let's just draw a cloud. Actually, this would be helpful. Okay, so then we will crop here. Make this a little bit off white. There we go. Cloud. We'll add this in. And we'll animate these a little bit. So let's start with our Luna Streams logo. So we're going to make sure we're on 0. And we'll add a rotation, so we'll make sure that it starts out straight. We'll come to 1 second. Actually, we'll go to 2 seconds. And we'll rotate it just slightly. This way. So that's 1.6. So by 4 seconds, we'll set back to 0. 6 seconds. We'll do negative 1.6. By 8 seconds. Okay. So we need to be, I think we need to do odd number. So let's take this away. Let's go back to our composite shot properties, and instead of 10 seconds for this one, I'm going to go with 9 seconds. And yeah. Okay, so let's set this back to 0. Rotation, get our keyframe. 3 minutes, or 3 seconds, we'll go 1.6. 6 seconds. We'll go 6. And then here, we'll be back to 0. Let's see what that's like. Cool. Very subtle. Again, we don't want it to be crazy. We're just trying to bring a little bit of life. So then the other thing I'm going to do to the scale, so we're going to start, obviously it's at 88%. I want this to grow a little bit, so at half the time, it's going to be 415. Let's grow to about that size. And then back down to 88% by the time we get to the end. Okay, and then same thing with our cloud. So rotation is going to be very subtle. By the end, we're back to 0. This one, I'm going to make a little more aggressive though on how we're growing. So let's make it initially shrink. So our base is 75. So let's make it shrink to 70. Grow to 75. I didn't set keyframe. Okay. $70. 75. 80. 75. 70. 75. 80. 85. Let's not do 85. So the other one was 80. We could keep it in increments of 5, that's fine. 85. And 75. Okay, let's make our rotation go the other way though. That way it doesn't line up with our logo. Okay. So this file save as is going to be top banner. Then under our media explorer, right click, add to export content. We're going to save this as rainbow unicorn top banner. Save, start exporting. media source, display, rainbow unicorn, top banner, browse, top banner, boop, okay. And then anywhere you put this, it's just gonna fit because it's the same style as our other things. Kind of actually like this offset a little bit, so we'll go there, and yeah, it looks great. And then from there, you can add your browser source to add like your Twitch counter and everything like that. Okay, so this is our almost finished product. So we have our outside border, we have the webcam overlay that we made, and then we have our top banner. And I did go ahead and add in the browser object with the Twitch and YouTube counter, just so you guys could see. Obviously we're not live streaming right now, so there's no count. But the reason I say that we're almost finished is because these video overlay files that we output, they're huge, so we don't want to leave these in AVI format and use them. For example, if you take a look at the rainbow unicorn outside border, this is almost 2 gigs. It's over 2 gigs rather. That's ridiculous, and you don't want that loaded into RAM every time you're streaming. These are, this is 154 meg. This one is 194 meg, so almost 200 meg. So that's a lot for what it is. It's completely not necessary. So what we're gonna do is open this WebM converter, and I'll provide a link to this. This is free as well. So what you're gonna do is just go ahead and browse to those files. Go ahead and then open them up and check this box for enable high quality mode. We don't want to lose any, or there's always quality loss anytime you do a conversion, but in this case we want to lose as little as possible because these overlays are on your stream like front and center constantly, so you want them to look as good as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and hit convert. This is going to take a while to finish, so I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through a lot of this for you guys, or at least speed up the video. I'm going to go ahead and do the other two as well, just for time's sake, and I will see you guys on the other side of this being done. Okay, and so we're back, and this this finished up. So just as a contrast, so this was over 2 gigs in size, and if we look at the converted product, we're at 1.73 megs on disk. So that's insanely small. And then the same for these. These are kilobytes in size versus almost 200 megs. So much better for the stream. So what we're going to do then in OBS is come into your sources, find each one of these sources that we had set, and we're just going to swap them with the WebM. And we don't need to do anything else other than that. This is pretty easy to do. Okay, so now our stream's happier, our computer's happier with us, and we're ready to go. So listen, thank you guys so much for hanging out and for checking out this video. I hope this was helpful for you guys. If you did find this helpful, it would be a huge help for me if you would click the like button on this video and also to subscribe to the channel. I am a systems engineer by day, so I'm going to be doing a lot of PowerShell automation, videos, stuff related to Microsoft System Center Configuration Manager, or Microsoft Endpoint Manager, Configuration Manager now, and things of that nature, as well as more things like this. I had a lot of fun with this. It's been a really fun kind of learning experience to dive into, and I'm excited to dive in more and see what I can make. So thank you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time.